Happy Sabbath, everyone. Thank you, Zachary. That was so good. Honestly, I feel nervous coming up after you. It was a really good presentation. So I've been asked to present the anatomy and function of the eye to our youth and teens. Disclaimer, I'm not an ophthalmologist. I don't specialize in the eyes, but what I can do is just break down the anatomy and function, and also maybe talk about a bit of the spiritual element of things, just to help us think a bit more from a spiritual lens and use common sense when it comes to creation. So, just generally about the eyes, things you may have heard. Eyes are the windows to the soul. Who's heard that? From the eyes of a person, you can see the genuineness of a person. Who believes that? I do. I think you can tell a lot from looking at someone's eyes. Eyes speak volume without saying a word. So emotions like love, joy, sadness, insanity, if someone has crazy eyes, a lot of it can be seen just from looking at someone. Our eyes can also reveal our level of confidence and assertiveness. So one thing that I think most people can notice, if someone struggles to hold eye contact, they look away a lot, they might be quite nervous, quite an anxious person. On the other hand, they may be dishonest and aren't able to hold eye contact. These are things that, as humans, as we interact with each other, we learn pattern recognition. A lot can be seen in the eyes of someone. Who as a child heard that if you cross your eyes, they'll stay that way, so stop pulling faces? And eating carrots can improve your vision, a way that parents get you to eat your vegetables. And men are colorblind. Who's heard that one? Might be some truth in that. Okay, so I'm going to split this presentation into two sections, two pillars. I'm going to look at the anatomy and the structure of the eye, and also the function, so how vision works. I'll try and keep it interesting. I know, like a lot of the young people, you have biology lessons and stuff, so you probably know this, but we'll go into it in a bit more detail. So I'm going to go from the front backwards. So if we start with some external structures, we have our eyelashes. So these are our first line of defense. They're the shortest group of hairs that grow on the body. You have them on the top and the bottom, or should have them. Sometimes they can be damaged. So, ladies, if we wear those eyelashes, sometimes if you pull them off, you can pull off your own eyelashes as well. So it does happen. But these are very sensitive hairs. So as soon as you touch them, and you're not expecting them to be touched, it causes a reflex to cause the eyes to close or to flutter to get rid of whatever is touching the eye. We also have eyelids. So these are thin folds of skin. They cover the eyeball anteriorly, and they're protective barriers. So they protect our eyes from excessive light. When you wake up first thing in the morning and you see the sun and you squint, your eyelids are protecting your eyes from any excessive damage, from dust particles. And also, every time you blink, your eyelids distribute tears over your eyes to provide lubrication, so that you don't have dry eyes. And also, there is an antimicrobial effect as well. So conjunctiva, on top of your eyes, there is a thin, transparent membrane that covers the white of your eye. Whilst providing lubrication, it also prevents against infections. And if you look really closely into someone's white of their eye, you can see that there are these small blood vessels. So if these become infected or inflamed, that's what we call conjunctivitis. Also, these blood vessels can burst, and that's when if you've ever seen someone with, a huge red patch on their eye, that's because the small vessels in the eye, in the conjunctiva, have burst, and that's what we call a conjunctival hemorrhage. I don't know if you guys, I think we all have similar experiences, but at school, there was always this kid that could put their eyelids inside out and just freak everyone out and just walk around with it. So inside, there's this pink, very pink, kind of wet film. That's also conjunctiva. Okay, the cornea So this part of the eye, if you see on the presentation, there's that light blue dome. That's the cornea, what we're talking about. So this is transparent, and it helps focus power into the eye. So when you look at a light goes into your eye, and the cornea helps to, I guess, bend the light to put it in the right direction to hit the back of your eye, so then the images can go to your brain. This also has a really high sensitivity, and what I mean by that is there are a high concentration of nerve endings in this structure. So if you touch your eye, if you do it accidentally, it's really uncomfortable and it feels really weird and no one really wants to do it. And that's because of all these nerve endings. So it's really sensitive, and that also causes the reflex for you to shut your eyes to protect your eyes from foreign substances. Also, the cornea is avascular. So what I mean by avascular, if you put A before something, it tends to mean without. So it doesn't have any blood vessels. So instead, it gets its nutrients through tears and a liquid called aqueous humor, and I'll show you where that is. And also, because it's avascular, because it doesn't have any blood vessels, it's clear, it's transparent, which is perfect for vision. Imagine if there were blood vessels on it. Every time you look out, you'd be seeing all these lines in your eyes. It wouldn't really help for clear vision. Does anyone know what floaters are? Have you seen floaters? So what these are is essentially, if you were to just look around, you can sometimes see these little dots just floating in your eye. Yeah, so that's a shared experience. You're not insane. These are floaters, and these are things that are actually in our eyes as well. So the sclera, this is also known as the white of the eye, and it actually helps to maintain the shape of our eye. Also, in some cultures, having a very white sclera is, a sign of, beauty. Sometimes discoloration can also be an indication of, irritation. But it also helps to offer resistance against external and internal pressures. So if you poke yourself in the eye, there's resistance there. The sclera is kind of that protective mechanism. And also inside the eye. So there are conditions such as glaucoma where you can have high pressure in the eye because the liquid isn't flowing out as much. And this, I guess, allows for there to be a barrier to protect from those internal and external pressures. So we're still in the front part of the eye. So the anterior chamber, or the front part, is between the cornea, which is that dome at the very front, and also the iris. So the iris is, I guess, the pretty part of the eye, which we'll come to. And just between those two structures, we have something called aqueous humor. Again, a very clear liquid that is at the front part of the eye. And it helps with the pressure in the eye. It keeps the shape and the function. And it also provides nutrients as well to some of the structures that don't have blood vessels. So blood vessels usually is what provides nutrients to our organs, so oxygen and other things like that. But because these don't have vessels, it has, I guess, liquid that stores that nutrient for it. So the iris, so these are the pretty parts of the eyes. We all have, different colored eyes and different patterns. Humans love, I guess, the uniqueness of the iris. There tends to be certain colors seem to be a bit more, I guess, unique. So, people have hazel eyes or, green eyes. Blue eyes and brown eyes tend to be the ones that most people have. But the iris isn't just for, recognition and uniqueness of humans. They have a role. So inside the iris, there are muscles, really tiny muscles. And what they do is when you look at a bright light, in order to protect your eye and to protect, I guess, your brain at the back and not to have too much light, the muscles in the iris contract. So if my hands are the muscle, when you see a lot of light, they contract and come in, and they make the pupil smaller. So that's what we call pupil constriction. So it kind of contracts and makes the pupil smaller to prevent too much light coming into the eye. And then in the opposite way, so when it comes to night vision, or if there's a lot of dim light, you need to bring more light into your eyes so that you can see your surroundings. So there are muscles in the iris that relax and kind of open up so that the pupil becomes larger and dilates so that we can see more what's going around us. So it changes to give us optimal vision varying environments. And the amazing thing about this is that it's automatic. We don't have to make any conscious, thoughts to change the way that we see the world. So the lens, this is essentially the focusing mechanism. Another way to think about it is like a magnifying glass. So it's a transparent biconvex structure. And when I say biconvex, it's basically this shape. So it bends light and it focuses it on the retina at the back of the eye, which we'll talk about, and it's held in place by ligaments on top and below. So kind of like the iris, it changes its shape automatically. So if you see something near to your face, it becomes thicker and fatter, like more curved like this. And then if you're trying to look at a distant object, it pulls thinner and flatter so that you can see objects far away. And again, this is done without conscious effort. So I can see a few people in the audience with glasses. Who's short-sighted? And who's long? Right, okay. So the difference is the different types of glasses or the different types of lens that are in your glasses are based on whether you're short or long-sighted. So sometimes the lens doesn't work as well as we'd like it to. It can become a bit stiff. And so you can struggle to see things far away. If you're in a driving test, part of the driving test is they say, can you read that registration plate? And I guess what they're looking for is how well does your lens work? And so sometimes our lens need a bit of help, and that's why we have glasses. Some of them are a bit more curved and thicker if you're short-sighted, or then thinner if you're long-sighted. So now we're going further towards the back. So the vitreous humor, if you were for some reason to have an eyeball in your hand and you squashed it, what would come out? Vitreous humor, yes. Just basically, it's just a clear gel. And what it means, it means glass-like. So it's a clear gel, and it's between the lens on the image and the retina, which is that pink kind of covering at the back. And the three main functions, so it has magnifying power. So I don't know, if you ever look at gel, if you had, like alcohol gel, and you were to squirt it on a piece of paper where there's writing, you can tell that it kind of magnifies the writing, and that's essentially what it does. It also supports the lens, so it holds it in place, and it also holds the layers of the retina at the back in place. Now, there's something called retinal detachment. I'll have to explain it a bit more when we talk about the retina, but that retina, it's really important for it to stay in place for vision. If it becomes attached, it can result in blindness and immediate permanent blindness as well, so it's very important. So the retina, crucial component of the eye, it has two types of cells. The main ones that I'm going to explain to you are called rods and cones. So the rods are really sensitive to low-level light. So this is night vision. When you're just woken up, the curtains are down, or in the winter when the sun doesn't rise until a lot later on in the day. We need to be able to see what we're doing. So these are very sensitive to low levels of light. And the second type of cell are cones, and these are responsible for color vision, and they function best in bright light. And together, they make light into electrical impulses, and they're transferred through the back of the eye to the optic nerve to the brain, and that's what creates images and the way that we see the world. So at the back of the retina, which the best way is like a pink sheet at the back of the eye, there's a dot, a small black dot. So it's circled there. It's called the macula. And this is a spot at the back of the eye. And this is really important for central vision, high acuity vision, and color vision that's possible with good light. So if your macula is damaged, this results in the loss of central vision. So if you were to look at my face and you had a central vision loss, this would be a blur. All you would be able to see was around me. So like your peripheral vision is intact, but you can't see what's in the center. Can you imagine trying to navigate the world, not being able to see faces and see things right in front of you? I think anyone who has struggled with eyesight issues or eye damage, I'm sure you know that it really is an integral part of, the way we see the world. Also, the fovea, so it's another dot just inside the macula. That's really important for sharp central vision, such as reading and driving. So the optic nerve, which is probably one of the main contributors to this party, it's a bundle of over 1 million nerve fibers. And this is what carries visual information from the retina. So the light goes through the cornea, through the front, all those chambers we talked about, through that gel in the middle, hits the pink film at the back of the eye called the retina, and then it goes through the optic nerve into the brain. And this is what creates images that we can understand, and this is what facilitates our perception of the world. So if you were to damage your optic nerve, this can lead to complete vision loss and impairment. So I mentioned glaucoma before, where there's a lot of pressure in the eye, and that pressure damages those nerves in the optic nerve. Or you can have inflammation. So in certain conditions like multiple sclerosis, one of the first signs can be vision loss, because there's inflammation in the optic nerve, and it reduces overall eye health and vision quality. Okay, so we've looked at some of the key structures on the eye and how they all work together to contribute to our overall function and vision. So we've got the cornea that focuses the light, the lens that adjusts for distance, the retina that detects it, and then the optic nerve, which forms the images in the brain. So I guess why we're all here today is to discuss if these things are by design or by chance. I think at the start of the presentation, my dad threw paper in the air and pen in the air and said, okay, all this, if I just throw it in the air, can it randomly form the Oxford Dictionary? And I think if we use that same thinking with this, it would be really hard to say that this is a random thing. There are so many different variations and different components of the eye that work seamlessly together to give us visual capability. And not just, the anatomy and the function, but the ability of the eyes to show emotion or sincerity of a person is something that can't quite fully be explained by anatomy and function. Obviously, we have body language, we have muscles in our face and eyebrows and things like that that can show expression. But there is something about the eyes that is spiritual as well. So some of the verses that I found to talk about eyes. So Matthew 6, verse 22. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. So obviously that's talking about, facts. If your eyes are working, it brings light into your eyes and you can see. And if they're not working, if you're blind, then your perception of the world is dark. However, the Bible really speaks about, guarding the eyes and guarding what you see and what you put in front of you. And what we see and the things we choose to put in front of us and the things we choose to act on, that guides our decisions, it guides our choices, it guides our perception on life, how we treat others, what we do, what we think. The person who we become, a lot of it is through what we see. Children watch everything. They watch what you do as parents, things that you think they may not be picking up on, they are. Pattern recognition. There are some things that you may not be able to, recognize something initially, but if you've seen it before, there's something in you that knows, okay, this has happened before, and you act based on that. And God knew that humans, we survive on these types of things. We survive on our pattern recognition in order for us to I guess, survive. It's a survival thing to be able to see something and say, you know what? I've done this before. I've seen this before. This is not safe. Let me not do this. All these things come through our eyes. We also have other senses as well, but I think the eyesight is one of those really important ones. Secondly, Proverbs 20, verse 12, the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. So if you're Christian, if you believe in the Bible, if you believe in God, you can't argue with that. Do you know what I mean? It says what it says. And then one thing I always think is when something is said twice in the Bible, God really wants you to pay attention. So Luke 11, verse 34, your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eyes are healthy, your whole body is full of light. But when they are unhealthy, your body is full of darkness. Again, he's talking about how important our eyes are to who we become, the choices we make, and eventually where we end up, salvation. And I think when God made us initially, the whole aim of creation, and you know why Jesus died, he wants us to be with him. And so he would give us the best tools in order for us to do that. And the eyesight and the anatomy and the function and everything that, you know, we just talked through, how it seamlessly works together, how we don't even have to think about it. It's a perfect tool. It's a perfect tool that was made completely from the beginning. There is an argument that I wanted to share with you, and it's called irreducible complexity. So the argument is that the eye is an irreducibly complex organ, meaning that all of its parts are essential for its function. And if any part was removed, the whole organ would cease to work, suggesting it must have been created complete. And I think if we add that with our, you know, what we know about God and how much he loves us and how much he wants us to get to heaven, he's giving us tools like our eyes, which are perfect in its complexity. Thank you very much.